So the supreme leader of Iran, Ayatollah Khamenei, whatever the hell they're calling him these days, just took to social media and sent a stark warning to America and the rest of the planet. He says the harm the U.S. will suffer will definitely be irreparable if they enter this conflict militarily. Huh. You scared? There's obviously a discussion going on right now across this country and certainly in Washington, D.C., at the White House in particular, about what involvement the U.S. should have, if any, with Israel's ongoing week-long conflict with the Republic of Iran, the Islamic Republic of Iran. Some things are absolutely without doubt. One of them is that Iran is very close to a nuclear weapon. I know there's lots of controversy about that, but the fact is they have stockpiles of enriched uranium, highly enriched uranium, well beyond any means for commercial energy purposes. There's only one reason to enrich uranium at the levels they've been enriching it, and that is to have a bomb. They've also been in violation of their proliferation agreements with the international bodies that govern these things. And these are not right-wing, pro-American international bodies. In fact, quite the opposite. They come out of that cesspool of the UN. There's also one other thing that's very, very true right now. Without a doubt, Iran has never been as vulnerable as they are right now because of the initial missions carried out by the government of Israel. They have basically no air power. If something's going to be done to finish off their nuclear program, now is the time. And that seems to be the decision that the president is evaluating as we speak. Earlier today, about an hour ago, he was on the lawn of the White House installing 2 giant new flagpoles that he's financed. And while standing there, he began interacting with reporters, and he had a lot to say. He also spent a little bit of time assuaging fears of many in his base with regard to their concerns that the president is moving headfirst into a mistake like the Iraq War. To begin with, let's see what the president had to say about the latest warnings from Iran.
Unconditional surrender. Two very simple words. A very simple, unconditional surrender. That means I've had it. Okay, I've had it. I give up. No more. Then we go blow up all the all the nuclear stuff that's all over the place there. No, they had bad intentions. For 40 years they've been saying death to America, death to Israel, death to anybody else that they didn't like. They were bullies. They were schoolyard bullies. And now they're not bullies anymore, but we'll see what happens. Look, nothing's finished until it's finished. War is very complex. A lot of bad things can happen. A lot of turns are made. So I don't know. I wouldn't say that we won anything yet. I would say that we sure as hell made a lot of progress. And we'll see. The next week is going to be very big, maybe less than a week.
All right, couple things to note here. First of all, notice how he's talking about Iran in the past tense. They were bullies. He also talked about the immediate success of the initial missions into Iran to neutralize their nuclear program. He's using the term we, even though technically we haven't done anything. I mean, we have provided armaments and supplies to Israel, and Israel has gone ahead and carried out their defensive mission to make sure that this incredibly hostile neighbor that has vowed for decades to wipe them off the planet does not have the capability of doing that. The president is using the word we when referring to that. That's noteworthy. I think he also had 2-word message to Iran, which is unconditional surrender. That's not the only 2-word message he had, though. He had one specifically to the supreme leader, the Ayatollah. We'll get to that 2-word message in just a moment. And then something amazing happened. Something hilarious happened, actually. A reporter asked Trump, so what's America going to do? When are they going to do it? Where's the attack going to come from? It's like basically asking him if there are any specific plans for a military strike against Iran, and if so, what are they? What kind of moron asks that question? Excuse me, General Eisenhower, I know you're planning some kind of invasion to Europe. What day is it going to be? And, there's speculation as to whether you're going to go for Normandy in France, or maybe you may want to attack in Italy. Could you let us know so we can report it worldwide days before the D-Day invasion happens? Who are these people? They deserve to be mocked. They deserve to be derided and made fun of and insulted. And thankfully, we have a president who's up to the task. Watch what he does.
You believe the U.S. is moving closer to striking Iranian nuclear facilities. Where's your mindset on that?
I can't say that, right? You don't seriously think I'm going to answer that question? Will you strike the Iranian nuclear component? And what time exactly, sir? Sir, would you strike it? Would you please inform us so we can be there and watch? I mean, you don't know that I'm going to even do it. You don't know. I may do it. I may not do it. I mean, nobody knows what I'm going to do. I can tell you this, that Iran's got a lot of trouble, and they want to negotiate. And I said, why didn't you negotiate with me before? All this death and destruction. Why didn't you negotiate? I said to the people, why didn't you negotiate with me 2 weeks ago? You could have done fine. You would have had a country. It's very sad to watch this. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. It's so, everyone thought it was going to be the reverse. I didn't think so. And I was telling them, you gotta do something. You gotta negotiate. And at the end, last minute, they said, no, we're not going to do that, and they got hit.
Again, with the past tense, by the way, noteworthy. Take note of these things. These are little tells. But secondly, I do love the fact he mocks the reporter to her face, then turns to the construction worker dudes who are putting up the flagpole, and he starts saying, wait, can you believe how stupid these people are? What, I'm going to tell you that? I'm going to tell you that? And they all start laughing along. That's fantastic. I love that. Anyway, then President Trump, who has been engaging, obviously, with backdoor discussions through emissaries with the Islamic Republic of Iran and other players in the region, was asked very specifically, you might not hear it from the reporter, it's off mic, did you give Iran an ultimatum?
The Iranian ultimatum?
You could say so. They know what's happening. Maybe you could call it the ultimate ultimatum, right?
What essentially was that, though?
Oh, I don't want to say it. Look, I mean, give me a break.
What about the Paramount deal?
I would say the elder. She's doing great.
Why? Why did they do this? Did you give Iran an ultimatum? Yeah, you could say that. You could call it the ultimate ultimatum. Really? What was it? It's just so stupid. And then that brings us to the 2-word message, specifically to the Ayatollah, the guy who can, call all the shots right now. In fact, there are rumors being reported that he's trying to negotiate with Putin over in Russia for exile. He might skip town. He might get his turban out of Tehran and try to save his own butt. The courageous, fearless leader that is. Donald Trump was asked today if he had a message for the Ayatollah, and here's that message.
President, what do you say to the Supreme Leader of Iran who says that they will not surrender?
Say good luck.
What is the end game?
Say it.
I know the patience run out.
It's already run out. That's why we're doing what we're doing.
You could take out.
Yeah, they had 60 days and a big, 60 days, plenty of time. And they made a mistake. Honestly, they made a mistake. Their country's in ruins. So many people are dead that shouldn't be dead.
Do you have a message for the Supreme Leader? Yeah, 2 words. Good luck. Good luck, pal. Kiss your ass goodbye. Damn. There is something refreshing about seeing a president just sort of hanging out, watching. I think he loves the construction process. And he's commissioned these giant flagpoles for the White House grounds. He wanted to go out there and see it as they were being put up. In fact, he was making jokes with the construction workers. We're going to show you a little bit of a funny clip to sort of cut the tension here with all the war talk at the end of this segment. But there's just something very cool about seeing him hanging out there, watching the construction process and just sort of engaging and shooting the shit with with a bunch of reporters. And And through it, he was sort of just speaking off the cuff, like this moment.
What gave you the idea to do this?
I've had it for a long time. The first time I had it, but you guys were after me. I said I had to focus. I was the hunted, and now I'm the hunter. It's a big difference. Big difference.
Did you catch that? So one of the reporters said, how long have you been planning on doing these flagpoles? And he said, I had the idea for a long time. I wanted to do it in the first term, but I was dealing with so much stuff that first term, as they were going after him with Russian collusion and the special prosecutors and the lie of the day every single day and all of the fake news and all the controversies. And he just summed it up by saying, I was the hunted, but I've gone from the hunted to the hunter. I like the way he leaned in on that, by the way. Can we just watch that one more time?
What gave you the idea to do this?
I've had it for a long time. The first time I had it, but you guys were after me. I said I had to focus. I was the hunted, and now I'm the hunter. It's a big difference.
I love that. Now I'm the hunter. Be the wolf. That's the lesson from Little Red Riding Hood. Not to stay on the path, not to follow the rules. The lesson is to be the wolf. All right, a little bit more talk about Iran here, and most specifically, and this may be the most important 30 seconds of this entire impromptu presser, when asked specifically about ruptures and concerns and very vocal criticisms from what is determined to be the MAGA base. We touched on this quite a bit yesterday and talked about many people, thought leaders, influencers, content creators. You notice no elected officials, really, not really. It's all the people in the commentariat, and they're important, and Trump cares about them, and they're certainly part of keeping the so-called MAGA base together. They have been, many of them, expressing grave concerns about Trump moving forward with this action against Iran and what the fallout might be. Will it be a forever war? Will it be a needless war? Why drag America into this? Are we just doing this for Israel? What's our interest in it? Why destabilize the region? All those questions that are legitimate to an extent. Trump had a message for all of you who may be thinking that, who may be wondering that. Here it is.
Some of the people in the base don't want a long-term war. They're afraid that we're going to get into a long-term war.
We're not looking for a long-term war. We're looking. I only want one thing. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon.
Right.
That's it. I'm not looking long-term, short-term. And I've been saying that for 20 years. I've been saying it as a civilian who got a lot of publicity. People would cover it. Very simply, Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. That's it. It's not a question of anything else. And if you did, you wouldn't have much of a country because they would use it on us and they'd use it on other people and they'd be a terror all over the world.
So there it is. If you have a concern about a long-term engagement with Iran and in the Middle East, if you have a concern about nation building and regime change, if you have a concern about a long-term endless commitment of the military due to this excursion with Iran, Donald Trump just delivered the message that I would hope you were looking to hear. It's not going to happen. This is about one thing and one thing only, not regime change, not occupation, not long-term military security personnel trying to secure the region and give it. No, none of that. One thing, Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. We're going to make sure that doesn't happen. And I got a couple of things to say about this. Let's just watch it real fast, especially the first part of it.
Some of the people in the base don't want a long-term war. They're afraid that we're going to get into a long-term war.
We're not looking for a long-term war. We're looking. I only want one thing. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon.
Right.
That's it. I'm not looking long-term, short-term. And I've been saying that for 20 years.
Then that's true. And let's face it, President Trump has been consistent on this, and so has every president before him. Like going all the way back to Ronald Reagan, this has been a concern. And every single president has said the exact same thing. Now, not all of them have really followed through. One of them in particular, with the initials BO, actually gave Iran as much runway as they could possibly want to be able to enrich uranium, to be able to actually move toward a nuclear weapon. If he hadn't, we wouldn't be in the dire situation that we're in right now, as they are as close as they are. But every president up to now has said the exact same thing, and there's nothing different with regard to President Trump's position, whether you're talking about the presidents before him or whether you're talking about Donald Trump himself as a civilian, as he pointed out. I guess the difference is, and I'll explore a couple of ideas with you here if you don't mind. Number one, as I already mentioned, President Trump, unlike his predecessors, is actually in a position to do something about this, partly because of Israel already moving forward for the past week in weakening Iran's air defenses and destroying quite a bit of their uranium enrichment protocols. It really just appears to require one final exclamation point, and whether we do it or whether we assist in doing it seems to be the question. That's a big difference. But make no mistake, not only has every president up until now said the exact same thing that Trump has said, and now Trump finds himself in a position to actually do something about it, but there's another thing to consider. Does Donald Trump want to be the president who was in office when Iran actually did get that nuclear weapon? Nobody wants to be that guy. Nobody wants to be the president who allowed this to happen. No one wants to be the guy who will have it in the history books that Iran got a nuclear weapon on their watch. He knows that. Also, everyone's saying, and I'm one of them, if you go in with a military incursion right now and you assist in ending the nuclear program and that ends up destabilizing the government, and then there may be a military coup or there may be uprisings or maybe worse actors come in and they become an even worse terrorist state than the Ayatollahs, all of those scenarios are worth exploring, right? It's the whole idea. You break it, you bought it. You go in and you destabilize this government and they get overthrown. Well, you're responsible for what comes next. And Trump gets that, and his entire national security team gets it, and that's part of the contemplation that's going on right now. But if that's the case, and it's worth exploring and being responsible about having that conversation in a fully transparent way, which we should, well, then it's also responsible to talk through the consequences of Iran obtaining a nuclear weapon. If we do nothing and Iran continues down this path, everyone says, well, you know, they're going to get a nuclear weapon and then they may use it against Israel or they may use it against another ally. They may use it against where the military bases for the United States are in that region. Or if they develop an intercontinental ballistic missile, they'll be able to use it against us in our homeland. Those are all things to consider, but that's not the only thing to consider. If Iran gets a nuclear weapon and you're Saudi Arabia, you're fast-tracking a nuclear weapon. If Iran gets a nuclear weapon and you're Jordan, you're Egypt, you're Turkey, you're fast-tracking a nuclear weapon. Nobody is talking about this aspect, the domino effect that occurs if the Persians in the Middle East, who are seeking dominance historically over the Arab nations, if suddenly they're a nuclear power, then the Arab nations will demand to be co-equal nuclear powers. You worry about nuclear proliferation, the last thing you want is the mullahs to have a nuclear bomb. And I promise that's part of the equation in the White House too. All right, more from President Trump today in this impromptu press conference.
You probably, but this looks better.
Mr. President, can you share some of what you've told Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu?
So keep going. What do I say? I speak to him every day. He's a good man, doing a lot. Been very unfairly treated by his country, I think. Very unfairly treated.
Have you given him any indication that you may seek to aid them more than you have already?
No, I haven't. So far, he's done a good job. He has been treated very unfairly by his country. You know, he's a wartime president, and he's going through this nonsense. It's ridiculous.
Sounds like you had a good
agree
meeting.
with him that
Yeah, the National Security Council.
Very good meeting, yeah.
Anything that came up.
As you probably
There you go. Voice of support for Benjamin Netanyahu. And when asked, what did you tell him? He said, keep going, keep doing it. You're doing a good job. All right. I mentioned that there were some lighter moments during this photo op, and there were. We could actually play you a whole segment's worth of Trump at his best, doing stand-up, interacting with the construction workers and with the press, and being an all-around pretty funny guy. But one clip in particular stood out to us, mostly because we're basically 12-year-olds at heart. This was a great moment.
Let's have a good, they call it a lifting. They also use another word, but I'm not going to use that word. You know what that is? The word, it starts with an E. You know what the word is? If I ever used it, I'd be run out of town by you people. All right, so enjoy it. Duck, you're going to get some good. He's going to win another Nobel Prize, I think, for this picture. So maybe the flag will be even more exciting, but this is pretty exciting. That's some equipment, I'll tell you what. Let's have a
All right, so they're going to have a good lifting as they put up the flagpole. A lifting, he's calling it. There's another word they use that starts with an E, but he's not going to say that. He'll get run out of town. It's erection. Erection. It's good to have a laugh. After all, we're on the brink of war. It was funny. Erection.